but I
Which
but I did go, and yeah, what a small world. And yeah, I'm not sure if there's any studios that are still out. I mean, there was a bunch in the Bay Area, and that was also an early aspiration. So excited to see that we have that connection there.
yeah, well, I'll even solidify it. So I trained at the Sunnyvale School, so that was my
Wow,
studio uh
wow,
with Terry Lee, and Sujin Lee was over at the Cupertino School at the time, and
wow.
we would switch around. That was one thing that was cool with Ernie Reyes' West Coast Taekwondo is, when you started training for your black belt and upper degrees, we would have these kind of mixers, right? So we'd go to like, the San Jose school or the Santa Clara school, and even though he had, I think, 11 schools at the time, we would all collaborate and come together as a community on weekends and for black belt training. So that's really cool, man. Yeah, right next to I think that's Fremont High School over there down the
Yep,
street.
On El Camino and Bernardo. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Little
Yep.
Caesars, 7-Eleven. Yeah, dude.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
yeah,
What a small world.
that's awesome.
And you mentioned, some early inspirations, aspirations with Bruce Lee, and we can't help but, transition into Warrior, which I believe this came out in 2019, so it was a few years back now. I
Right.
have to admit, I was late to watching Warrior. I've watched Warrior in the past year, more
Okay.
when it came on to Netflix, and I've had a lot of my friends say, "Man, what are you doing? This is like one of the best shows on TV." And you play the character of Bolo on this show, and you are a complete badass on this show. Awesome, awesome martial arts skills. And this was also, there's a Bruce Lee connection to this, right? And Shannon Lee was an executive producer.
Definitely. So actually the connection with Bruce Lee is that this is the whole warrior concept, and the entire first season was based on Bruce Lee's inspiration and writings. So he's the one who invented this whole idea of the warrior. And he pitched it back in like the late 60s, I believe, to Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken, and possibly other studios. They literally just racially discriminated against him and said, we're not looking for a Chinese leading man. This will never get made. So after that, it basically sat on a shelf and ended up in a garage, in a box in a garage in Shannon Lee's garage, like literally in
Wow.
storage. And so many decades later, the story goes, Justin Lin had heard about these scripts that Bruce had written and these treatments, and reached out to Shannon, asked if they did exist. She says, I have them. Teamed up with Jonathan Tropper from Tropper Inc., who just came off a Banshee at the time of creating that awesome series over there on I think that was on Cinemax as well in the beginning. It was a perfect storm. You had Justin Lin, you had Jonathan Tropper, you had Shannon Lee, all involved, and just really grateful and honored to have brought a treatment, a vision, a story that the legendary Bruce Lee created decades before I was born to life, literally in 2018, 2019. We had actually started filming the pilot in 2017. So when it finally hit Netflix, which was the ultimate goal, just so it could get on that platform globally and be accessible to everyone and to the world, I think, what is it, almost 6-7 years had passed since we actually did it, and it was a hit again. So that's the one thing I'm really proud about Warrior. It's timeless, it's historic, um, it's excellent. The writing's excellent, the acting is excellent, the action is excellent, and it's not just a martial arts, quote unquote, kung fu kind of show. It's an historical period piece with a martial arts element, and that just shows you the kind of intelligence and worldly views that Bruce had back in the 60s. He was so ahead of his time. So it's for him to have written something like this back then, and for you to finally watch it on Netflix in 2024, whatever it was, and for you to enjoy it and identify with it as well as your friends. I mean, that says everything to how creative this man was, not only as a martial artist, but
Yeah.
as a writer, as a creative. So really proud to have done that.
Definitely right, and it takes place in San Francisco.
Right.
It's a period piece. So for me, I'm just seeing like this is what it was like, many years ago. So you're kind of seeing that, come to life, and also too. I mean, the character of Assam. I mean, you just see the mannerisms where this could have been Bruce Lee playing this character, right? And he does
Oh,
such a great job.
no disrespect to Andrew Koji, but man, I would have loved to seen Bruce play Assam. You know what I mean? So, like I said, just a great experience. and truly an honor to bring to life a treatment and a vision that Bruce Lee had that he could never had done back in the day, and for us to bring that to a reality for the world to see, that is just awesome.
And with your experience, were you asked to give some artistic liberties in some of those martial arts scenes, or what was scripted and choreographed is what you had to do on paper?
No, they were very collaborative. Shout out to Brett Chan, our stunt coordinator and fight director. One thing that Shannon, Justin Lin, and Jonathan Tropper um, made very obvious to me in the beginning, right before we even started pre-production, was that they did not want me to quote unquote mimic the real Bolo Young, and they wanted me to attribute him in whatever creative way I wanted. So they gave me a ton of freedom once we arrived, because we shot the series in South Africa in Cape Town. And so once we got there, and I met Brett Chan for the first time and his stunt team. We had a Chinese stunt team as well as Brett's team. I was a very big collaborative, world of stuntmen and women that made this thing as awesome as it is. Brett was very flexible. He gave me a lot of freedom to do what I was comfortable doing. We nailed and really pinpointed specifically the style of martial arts that Bolo was going to portray in Warrior Season 1. And it was based off of the Hungar Kung Fu style, which basically in layman terms is, minimum movement with maximum output. And so we just felt together that this really represented the kind of person Bolo was. Bolo doesn't move unless he has to. He doesn't get up unless he has to. And if he has to defend himself, it's with the most minimal movements with the most maximum impact. And that's just something that, we really focused on. And I love that concept. I felt like it just, the cool thing was with every character, whether it was Jason Tobin, who played Young June, or myself with Bolo, or Assam, with Andrew. If you watch it, and maybe you picked this up on the first time you watched it, we all have different styles, and we didn't want to mimic or replicate, the same fighting style or the same technique or the same vibe of other characters. We all wanted to have our own little thing. And I think that was very effective, in the overall picture when you watch the season, just because there's so much skill, there's so much technique, and there's so much violence in so many different ways, whether it's knives or literally fists, whatever it may be. I think it came together excellent. So, yeah, I was very, Brett was very flexible with me. He made sure I was comfortable all the time, which is smart, you know what I mean? Because the more comfortable actors are with their own craft, probably you're going to get the best result, whatever that may be. So, shout out to our whole producing, writing, directing team out there for just letting us live moment to moment.
Absolutely. And I do highly recommend for the fans that haven't seen it, if there's anyone else, that stumbled across it a little bit later like me. I mean, it's a best kept secret. It's not really a secret, but enjoy. It's a phenomenal show, and I do feel that you've done that you guys all did the period justice, and I'm sure Bruce would have been proud as well too. I know it's been a few years now, but are there any rumblings of the show coming back for season 4, or do we have
I
to
mean,
wait?
that's always kind of on the horizon, so to speak, and not, I don't want to get the fans too pumped up, but for those people listening right now, a lot of behind the scenes that weren't revealed to the public or the audience, I'll reveal a little just so that everyone knows. It was really tough. After season 1, we were told we're not going to get a season 2, and then all of a sudden season 2 sprang up. The studio's like, let's do it. They rushed the writers room to get this next season done. Season 2 turned out fantastic given the time crunch that was put on the production. After season 2, they're like, no, we're definitely not doing season 3. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, things happen in the world. Fans, speak out. You know what I mean? Because we had made enough noise on Cinemax, and then it moved to the HBO platform, and then it moved to streaming on Max, and it was out streaming actually, I think, Game of Thrones at one point.
Yeah.
So that just put us, on blast, basically, that the people loved what they were seeing. So next thing you know, season 3 gets greenlit, and from what I've heard, halfway through season 3, the studio is like, yeah, this is it. So it's been kind of a weird journey, and I've kept very close with people on the cast and on the producing team. Good friends with Shannon Lee, and I get updates all the time. And I just feel like we've always been kind of fighting upstream, to get this show out. And it's sad because it's a hit. The fans love it. It's not just the martial arts community. All communities really, really appreciated what we did. And I've really have never heard of a bad criticism of the show or a bad remark. If anything, everyone wants to know when the next season is and how come they didn't know about it. That's usually what the dialogue is. So never say never. As of now, I haven't heard anything about a season 4, but given the track history, and that's why I say all this, is you never know. It wasn't
Yeah.
like they said, hey, we're going to do 2, and then all of a sudden 3 was a bonus. Like they said we were done after 1. You know what I mean? So the fact that the franchise got 3 seasons total, that's a huge win, knowing the kind of environment that we were up against.
No, and we'll stay tuned, obviously, right? And I know doing a period piece is probably really expensive as well too.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully with the resurgence on Netflix, because it's always trending in the top 3, top 4 shows
Right.
right now. So definitely we'll stay tuned, and we're excited to see if we get anything else. If not, you have 3 amazing seasons to watch.